So I thought the framing for that session was really cool.
Yeah, they're such good topics, aren't they? Getting ready to grow and getting ready for investment really dovetail together. And I think they followed on from our sessions with David Levine on how to get investment in your business and Peter Van Eden on growing your business, which subscribers can listen to on our Strategy Cafe YouTube channel or on our podcast on Substacks. I thought they followed on from that just really, really well.
Yeah, and I think as well, the 6-factor model that we work our way through in the session, as well as the idea of being able to control the business with confidence, are very relatable for a lot of people, very real, and also very powerful topics for us to discuss.
It's funny, isn't it? You often talk to people about growth readiness, but rarely tie it in with this investment readiness piece. And they're so interlinked. So I think this could be something which is interesting for both people that are looking to do something around growth and people that are looking for investment. And I suppose those could definitely be the same people as well. It's good for highlighting up the things that people might not necessarily be thinking about. Often people assume they want to grow, say, let's get some investment. Maybe have not thought things all the way through and prepared well for taking on that investment.
Yeah, I think you're right, Matt. I think there's obviously things that every business does really well. But as you say, I think the session is really useful to highlight where your gaps are. And actually, if this is new to you, as you say, growth is new to you, it can be really hard to identify exactly what your gaps are because you don't know always what you're looking for. So I think this is a helpful framework for people.
Yeah, and we all know that our clients struggle with aspects of this all of the time. And I felt that this was just a really fabulous session just to bring investment readiness to life. So hope everyone enjoys it.
Hi, morning everybody. Really nice to see you. Welcome to Strategy Cafe. Really lovely to see everyone here today for this session on growth and investability. So for context, this session is built on one of the main things we do for a living, which is to guide the development of founder-led businesses, sometimes early on in their lives, sometimes at quite a mature stage as they get ready for whatever is coming next. Typically looking for investment of some sort, even if the founders are thinking of exiting at that point, and often these days by private equity, looking for that next stage of growth. So we're going to be covering our 6-element model, which is our model. We're going to be doing it quite a bit of breadth today. So if you miss anything, don't worry. We're going to record this session and it will be hosted on our YouTube site, which has got a playlist called Strategy Cafe. So when it's there, look, go have a bit of a dive. Also, there are 72 just fabulous interviews with leaders and discussions on a whole range of topics and sectors, including our July session with the Professor of Psychology and Guru of Wellbeing, Todd Kashdan, on psychological flexibility and harnessing your inner power, which I loved and I heartily recommend. If you haven't seen it, you go and have a listen to that. All right, let's introduce everybody. So if you don't know me, I'm Nick. I'm the founder of Alembic. And my background is kind of a bit of a smorgasbord, but bring together my childhood experiences at a Buddhist center with my family. My father was also a psychotherapist, and then a long career as a senior leader in major chartered accountancy practice to found Alembic as a leadership advisory business. Yeah, and what we do is help people fix their relationships, improve their relationships, because I think that it's through relationships that we can change the world. And then once we've helped with that, just to get better strategies for more success in their businesses. And here are my colleagues. So over to you, Matt.
Hello and good morning, everybody. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Matt. I'm nursing a bit of a cold, so please excuse me clearing my throat. I'm one of the senior strategy facilitators at Alembic. While my background is in healthcare, Today, I help leaders from across all different sectors work through some of their most challenging times. As Nick said, it's kind of all the way from high-level conflict to working towards selling your business and all kinds of different things in between. And we like to do that through a mix of facilitation, coaching, and training, and whatever else is necessary to get people to where they need to get to. Over to you, Alice.
Morning, everybody. So I'm Alice, and I'm a strategy facilitator at Alembic, and I'm also the person who leads our psychometrics. And I absolutely love it. I find it so interesting to learn more about people and what really drives them and what gets them out of bed in the morning. And I'm also the person at Alembic who does the marketing. So I try and communicate in a way that keeps our authentic voice and solve problems as they arise. And it's interesting because normally I'm on the other side of these webinars, but it's nice to be speaking today.
Great, thanks everybody. Just put a poll up, and if you're here as a business owner or here as an advisor, I'd be interested to hear your view on this. See what you think about when you're considering growth and investment, which of these is true for you? So, even split between feeling excited and energized, thinking about all the things that have to be done, and worrying about how things will change and the impact on the team. So thank you very much. All right, let's get into this. So a good place to start, I think, is to kind of just headline our 6-element Venn diagram, if you like, or domains to focus on. And so these are the 6 elements we've got here. So number 1, we're going to talk about in a little bit, is the idea of having a capable model. Headline here is just, are you in a business that can make money? Is it able to generate a profit? Then capable systems and processes. So what systems and processes do you have in place to drive the business capably? Whether you have the right people, so who's going to carry out any change and drive your growth for you. One that's often missed is basically spare resources or flexible resources or redeployable resources, this idea of redundancy or capacity. And then because we're thinking about a business that's under control and that gives a sense of confidence, we have to think about whether we have capable governance in place. And then finally, kind of a psychological term, really. So we're calling it here readiness, but it really means has everyone got the game plan in their head and are they game ready for the growth ahead? So hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to pass to Matt to kick us off with some more details.
Thanks, Nick. Interesting results of the poll there. It helps to illustrate my first point, actually. I just want to take a moment and talk about growth, as it's almost always seen as a singularly positive thing. And most of the time it is, but not always. And we can see from the poll that people have kind of got differing things which come to mind when they think about growth. So there's lots of adjustments and considerations that you need to make when you're going to grow your business. And there's almost always some trade-offs that come with growth and scale. So a great place to start, really, is to ask yourself why it is that you want to grow. So this is where things like visioning and strategy development work can be really valuable. And it can help you to start answer some of these kind of questions before diving into something because you feel like it might be the right thing to do. So that might sound like a bit of an overly cautious approach to some people, but there are a heap of challenges that can come with growth. And if we've got some established business owners here, then I'm sure that probably sounds like familiar territory. So from an operations standpoint, growth can put a massive strain on your cash flow. It's an obvious one. You need resources to start your growth. And if it's not managed well, it can actually start to overload and negatively impact your business operations. Quality control can be affected, and of course, compliance is something which you need to keep a really close eye on as you start to push for growth in your business. And there's also an element of people that needs to be considered. So growth can put a heap of pressure on the people in your business, and it can start to push people towards burnout. And it can also do things like disrupting workloads, or even start to dilute things like company culture. So if you have perhaps inconsistent messaging, or you have an influx of brand new people into your business, that can start to affect your culture overall. It's also worth noting that growth can be temporary, and the need to scale back your business if it's not supported by the market, or it's just not supported by the business long term, that can be really, really painful. It can be more painful than driving the growth initiative in the first place. So something definitely worth considering. In fact, they're all points that are really worth considering before you start to push a growth plan into motion. Now, while there are lots of drawbacks there, perhaps I'm starting to preach a story of caution and consideration and a slower approach to growth. It's really the speed of growth that is usually a big factor in making it difficult. And healthy growth can look quite different, and it can be really important for a business. Obviously, overall, it's a really important element for a business to thrive, and it can be hugely motivating and exciting for most people, though we have seen a slightly varied opinion in our poll this morning. And the positive elements of growth are probably a little bit more obvious. So building up new services, expanding into new markets, trying new things, attracting new talent, and if you're lucky, maybe some cash at the end as well. All really great reasons to grow. So when you're thinking about your growth plans, try to think about them in a realistic way. Try to nail them down with some timelines and not get too caught up and excited in the possibilities. And that should put you in a good stead to manage the speed of your growth and not get too tripped up. In fact, a great way to start looking at growth is to have a look at your business model and ask how you might be able to adapt that around your growth plan. Nick, perhaps you could tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, Matt, thank you. I think there's a great set of points just before I get into the capable model. I think that our experience is that the leadership team needs to be growth ready themselves. So whether that's from an HR people perspective, understanding these consequences on culture, and also having a really good approach, for example, to burnout as businesses scale. Sometimes businesses just are scaling because there's a heap of demand just pitches up, and that happened to a lot of clients after COVID, as the market bounced back. Been quite a lot of volatility there, so all of that's been really hard to manage. And having a really capable leadership team who not only understand their role and are very adept, but also link together and coordinate on the different aspects of this, I think is really, really important. So this idea of control. And I think it feeds into this concept of having a good model. So just thinking about being in business, I made a kind of fairly obvious point earlier on that you need to be able to make a profit and also generate cash. And these are quite strange concepts, I think, in lots of businesses. You kind of meet businesses which are really struggling with the basics of whether I can charge enough and to cover the costs and make a profit. If you can't do that, it's not really a business. And so the idea of placing yourself in a space where you can be basically profitable is a very obvious thing to say, but often is missed and is very important. So let's just take that idea on a little bit. So we're starting with a business that exists in a business sector and environment that has basic profitable flows. So there's a customer base that will pay a good price. There's a product you can get and sell for a good cost. You can run it effectively, and you can make a profit. All right. So what then makes the model really stand out, really different? And so there are just a few factors that drive up the attractiveness of that. and I've laid them out here. So the way I like to think about it is that there are three things, really very simply, just three things to bear in mind from an income perspective. You're growing your top line, and there's really just one thing in terms of cost. So this assumes, when you're looking at this slide, that you've got a good value proposition, a competitive value proposition in terms of your service and the product quality, right? So it just assumes that. So assuming that's in place, then is your business model, the way that you do it, is that able to command a premium price? So can you charge, because of the way you do it, more than the competition, all right? And then maintain demand or even increase demand. Then the next one, do you have premium loyalty? So this is the extent to which customers return to you and how many times they buy from you, how much across their range they buy from you, and how many years they stay with you. So it's a quite simple metric to monitor. And you can just look at the loss rate to kind of measure that and see what it's like compared with the competition. But if you have premium loyalty, then customers stay around, and that's really, really important. And then the final differentiating factor from an income model point of view is just premium acquisition rate. So can you attract customers in? Are they, has your business got a kind of vibe to it, which means that customers are coming towards you faster than competition? Or are you attracting the right kind of customers quicker than the others? Can you charge more? Do people stay around more and buy more regularly? And can you attract customers faster? Those three things will really drive up income massively and make you a very attractive business. Okay, and then coming on to cost, there's really only kind of one concept here, which is that given a certain level of quality, can you create that in a more effective way than the competition? Now, there's a bit of nuance here because it can be slightly more expensive, provided that gives you a premium margin overall. So that's dependent on the first items, the income items. So if that income is higher, then the cost can be higher. And the model you're looking for here is a better margin, so a better net. The probably the best way to think about it is, have you got a better way of producing value and quality, or maybe have you got a faster way of producing value and quality without diminishing or changing the nature of quality? Right, if you can get all these four things going, you're going to have high growth and profit, and you're going to be highly attractive to investors. And that's likely to push up the multiple that people are interested in offering you as a business. And then it's quite a complicated kind of idea, but a good way just to get into this to start with is to do a radar chart or a spider chart, it's sometimes called. And here, kind of thinking about 6 slightly different factors, but they're very powerful. So they kind of relate, and they relate to what we've been chatting about so far. So the first of all is, strategy. So I'm just going to call this your go-to-market proposition. So your value proposition, your identification of the right kind of customers and markets, the way that you pull together core providers, partners, and suppliers to generate together with your internal team that value proposition. So that's your kind of go-to-market strategy. Okay, so just being quite straightforward about it. What are you going to sell at what quality for what price? And at what cost base, and how you're going to win, right? That's your core go-to-market strategy. Then you've got to think about how you communicate that. So the next thing to think about is marketing, and that needs to basically reach out and create channels and openness and start to generate sales opportunity. I'm wrapping up sales as part of operations here as the next phase, but operations basically needs to deliver the marketing promise. If you get those things lined up, it's going to work. Innovation really is about how you respond to challenges and changes, either by thinking ahead of the market or responding to different approaches in the market to keep your business ahead. So innovation is a really key driver of change. We talked a little bit about HR, but the strategies and people in place to create the right people and culture environment to create productivity and scalability. And then finance is fundamentally whether you've got the right investment in place to support working capital and growth cycles. So do you have enough long and medium-term capital in the business to sustain growth? Have you got a platform of finance for growth? All right, and then very simply what you can do here is just score them out of 10. Score where you think they should be. So you can see here kind of a putative real score, which is the blue line, and a target score, which is the red line. It's a pretty easy thing to do. It's very visual. It's quite intuitive. It'll drive out a bit of a gap analysis, and the big gaps need some action planning around them. So that's really a good place to start on thinking about this. I'm going to pass you back to Matt.
Thanks, Nick. So I am going to pick one of those elements out of Nick's business model. Perhaps not the most exciting one, but one which is really important. And that is looking at your systems and processes. So a key point here is that your systems and processes need to be at least up to speed with your business operations and should really be an enabler rather than a limitation to your business. Now, the lens that I want to look at this from is through the change success model, a model which many of you may have seen before, if you tune in here regularly, or if you work with the Alembic team, and you can see it on screen there. As you can see, it is made up of 3 sections, each contributing towards the chance of a change initiative being successful. So we have readiness for change that I'm going to talk about a little bit later on, with things like a need for change and understanding of the change process. And then we have beliefs of key people to that change project. And that's got things like how difficult the change is perceived to be. And then people's attitude towards change. And finally, at the bottom, we have capabilities. So this is made up of 2 different sections, which is the capabilities of your people, which Alice is going to talk to us about in a moment, and the capability of your systems and processes, which is going to be my point. So will you imagine for me your business as a complex machine? Let's say a high-speed train. So the systems and processes within the business are comparable to the train's tracks and control mechanisms. So just as the train requires well-laid and sturdy tracks with a sophisticated mechanism for controls to get to its destination quickly, safe and safely, a business needs robust systems and efficient processes to work well to achieve its business goals. So without these, just as a train would struggle to maintain its course, a business would find it challenging to manage its operations, scale efficiently, and navigate a complex market landscape. So the infrastructure is really vital to steer the business towards its goals and prevent derailment from the challenges of expanding. Now, following on from that metaphor, imagine you were steering your high-speed train and you were using a control panel that was full of errors. You might find that at best to be a very slow and frustrating process, and at worst, you'd probably find that to be quite a dangerous process. But to be an enabler for the business and not a major constraint, your system needs to be free of major errors and not be something that's a barrier in the way of you expanding. A factor in making this a reality is having continuous improvement for your systems and processes. So your business doesn't stand still in time, and your systems and processes shouldn't do either. On many occasions, I have seen systems that are just about fit for purpose, not really enough to make them the front of the queue for funding improvements, just sit there and stagnate within a business. But this can be a really big mistake, and small deficiencies in your system and processes can really start to add up. And then often when people do come to making improvements to their systems, it's a really serious undertaking, and it might be something that's maybe not supported by cash flow. It's better to have a continuous improvement process that lets you incrementally update your systems, and then as you're updating them, you can also be reaping those benefits. And part of those benefits is likely to be an improvement in efficiency to your business. It's a word that, as Nick was talking to earlier, for people that might be looking at investment, it starts to be bandied around a lot because, after all, efficiency is a really key element to profitability, which is something that we use to value people's businesses. Of course, it's not easy. It can be really difficult to drive efficiency in your business and work. And it's a difficult and complicated balance to strike. However, don't expect to be running your business at a really high level of efficiency without addressing the systems and processes that run your business as well. And there's an interesting point worth mentioning here. So whilst value added by systems is usually viewed as adding value to operations through things like quality control, through informed decision making, or risk management or financial controls, in the best case scenario, your systems could actually be something which is valued separately, so kind of a standalone asset. And some businesses are even purchased for the purpose of gaining access to their systems and processes. And even if that's something which doesn't necessarily apply to your business, having great systems and processes will still probably provide you with improved resilience and efficiency, which will add to your business value that way. My final say on this is that I've seen scenarios where systems and processes have killed opportunities for investment or deals. Slow and outdated systems, which constantly require firefighting and disrupt the business, is just not a good look. And most people just don't want to have to deal with that, and it can drive value out of your business. So try and make your life a little bit easier. And when you're thinking about developing a growth plan, shine a light on your systems and processes and try and figure out whether they're fit for purpose for the future you're trying to make for yourself. And as I touched on earlier, the other side to this coin is capable people in your business. So systems and processes don't run themselves. Alice, perhaps you can explain to us a little bit more about capable teams.
Sure, thanks, Matt. Well, at Alembic, we really strongly believe that people are what makes growth and change happen, just as you say. So you can have these incredible systems, processes, and plans, but you need people in order to execute those how you'd like. So here, I think it's important to have an understanding of ourselves and of others. So things like our motivators, skills, and passions. So understanding what these are and aligning them with the company growth or investment goals is key to building a capable workforce. So we use tools like motivational maps, our psychometrics, and this assesses your personal drivers, so your why you get out of bed in the morning, and often actually why we use the language that we use and why we behave sometimes in the way that we do. A company can help employees better understand themselves and each other through tools like this. It also helps to strengthen communication and collaboration within and between teams. And it helps to ensure that everyone's talents and passions are directed towards the company's objectives, so it's all aligned. It also gives you the opportunity to place capable, talented people in the roles that they love. I think it also links nicely to this slide on change success. And it's in a slightly different section, but thinking about what's in it for me. So this section can be satisfied by connecting individuals to their own purpose and how it feeds into the wider company purpose. Also, as Matt talked about earlier, it's about balance. You want the team to grow and take on more tasks and tasks that are more complex, but you also don't want to cause burnout due to too much pressure and stress. So some questions that I'd ask in this section are your people capable? And then within that, who are the capable people? Who are the real talents and rising stars? Do they have the skills, resources, and support needed to smash it out of the park? Are the timelines that they're given realistic? So those are all things that I think are useful to consider here. And I've sort of talked to this already, but I want to delve a little bit deeper into purpose alignment. So linking to the purpose, goals, and vision, it helps employees to understand how their roles contribute to the company's broader vision. And we see this quite a lot, like I say, on the motivational maps. I won't go too deeply into this. I could talk about it all day. But one thing that often comes out is a motivator called the searcher, and that's really about how you make a difference. And often this is connected to what the company does. So when individuals see how their personal goals align with the organization's mission, often it makes them more motivated and feel more engaged. So it's especially critical for growth. It fosters a sense of purpose and ownership, and making sure that we're all driving the company in the same direction. Here, it can be helpful to reward the behavior that you want to encourage. So this is where an understanding of motivations and drivers can be a powerful tool. So you can also tailor the rewards for the specific behavior to people's motivators. So for example, if they're driven by something called a star on the motivational maps, it's about public praise. So maybe giving them a shout out in the weekly team meeting or the company newsletter could be a great way to boost that person's morale. Or if they're driven by a director, which is about being in charge and calling the shots, maybe giving them the opportunity to lead the right project could be a great way for them to demonstrate their skills and show they're a trusted and valued member of the team. And finally, something that I was just thinking about as Matt was talking is also about identifying talent and having change champions that can help with the growth and changes within the business. Sometimes when we are introducing change, people are a little resistant because of that uncertainty and around what it means for them and how their role might change. For example, introducing a new system or process, and they've been doing things the same way for a long time. Something like a change champion can help to diffuse some of that tension or resistance. And then finally, on this point, I've got a bit about training and development. So Nick spoke a little bit about sort of continuous improvement, and I want to talk about continuous learning, sort of on the same thread, really. So here, it's vital to invest in employees' training and development. It demonstrates that as a company, you value your staff and you're committed to their personal growth as well as the growth of the company overall. As I've sort of said already, recognizing achievements and offering opportunities for skill development not only boosts morale, but also equips your employees with the knowledge and skills needed to take on those larger tasks and projects. And this is essential as you continue to grow. It also means that you can identify where gaps are in skills and talent, and therefore identify what is needed to implement the change that you'd like. And finally, just that people are more willing to take on additional training when it's an area of interest for them, and they can see how this will help the company achieve their goals. So to summarize on this point, I just want to say that capable people, we believe, are the backbone of a company's growth strategy. They ensure the business has the talent, drive, and strategic execution necessary to attract and sustain investment. Next slide, please, Nick. So I'm also going to talk a little bit about redundancy capacity, and this is around how to get more out of what you have. So spare resource or flexible resources are what we want here to create our growth. So you either want surplus so you can scale, or you want flexible resources that you can redeploy at will. And we've sort of talked about this already, but one way to create redundancy capacity is through streamlining and waste reduction. So if you want to scale up, as we know, you have to really go heavy on streamlining. So often we have to brutally strip out the things that are not important. Completing a waste audit, for example, saves time and money in the long run and gives you a detailed insight into what is working that you should continue doing and what is not working that you need to stop or change. Identifying and eliminating waste in processes such as unnecessary steps or redundant systems and getting people to focus on the right things can significantly improve efficiency. This could involve things like automating tasks, cutting out outdated processes, or simply finding ways to simplify things. Finally, I would encourage you to talk to people in this stage. It may well be that people have ideas in mind on how to improve things, so don't assume you already have all the answers. Just a slight side point, I guess this links to communication as well, and how lack of communication can be a real bottleneck when we're trying to grow and introduce change. And before Alembic, I was working at a large company, and they were constantly introducing change and not communicating very well at all, or they were communicating with certain people, which led to a lot of gossip and assumptions, and made people actually very stressed. And one thing that actually was the tipping point was extremely surprising. We had a kitchen area, and one day some builders came in and they started to knock down one of the walls in the kitchen, and people were really upset. And it was really just down to the fact that they felt like they weren't being communicated with. They had no idea that this change was happening. And although it seems like a minor point that it was happening to the kitchen space, to add in, I think it was a breakfast bar. Actually, the point is that people felt neglected and they didn't feel like they were being part of the change. So that's why I really just want to emphasize the point about talking to people and involving people in change, because they likely have ideas of what might work best. My next point is about letting things go and moving on, which is much easier said than done. So really here it's about knowing when to keep going with things and when to drop it. But it can be really difficult to admit this defeat in practice. So for example, with projects, and we commonly see this, it can be really tricky to get this one right. So projects, as we know, require a lot of investment in terms of our time and effort and resources. Therefore, if we discover that a project is not going to plan, it can be really hard to accept this fact. But finding out that a project is not working as soon as possible and discovering the why is essential. You don't want to waste precious energy, time, and money on something that isn't working. However, it's also worth noting here that continually repivoting and changing the same project can sometimes negatively impact the morale of the team members working on the project. So it's all about balance, really. Could I have the next slide, please, Nick? Thank you. So here are a couple more tools for you all that we encourage and use with our clients to try and increase agility and adaptability. So we've got here, I'm not going to go into them in detail, but we've got here the 7 waste tool. And this is a really useful tool to help you reduce waste, to identify the waste in your business, help you to operate more effectively, leading to cost savings, improved quality, and faster delivery time. So whether that's on your product or your service. And it gives you key factors that investors look for if you're looking for investment there. As Matt said, a lean and waste-free operation is more scalable, and it can handle increased demand without requiring proportional increases in resources. And as I've said, really, in being more efficient, you become more profitable, and that's attractive to investors. And then we've got at the bottom here, Covey's time management matrix. It can also be Eisenhower's matrix. So you've probably heard of one, if not both of those. So this is around focusing on the most important tasks. So what we can often do is be pulled into that horrible first quadrant where we're essentially firefighting. So things are urgent and important. And they can be, it's a very stressful place to be, and it's not where we want to be. So where we want to aim for is that second quadrant. So tasks that are important, but not urgent. And that ensures that you're focusing on the long-term strategic growth and improvement rather than getting caught in the day-to-day activities and being pulled into those crises, especially as a leader. that first quadrant can take you away from those sort of big picture tasks and into the detail of the day-to-day. It also helps to identify where you can delegate tasks and give other team members the opportunity to step up. So often quadrant 3, we tend to say, is where tasks sit that you can delegate to other team members. And then quadrant 4 is where, as it says, they're time wasters. So although we all love scrolling on LinkedIn, in relation to everything else is maybe not a priority, especially when we are looking to grow. So those are a couple of tools that are very accessible, very straightforward, but can actually be very informative for both yourself and other team members. And then my final point just in this area of redundancy capacity is about having sufficient resources. So we've talked about this a little already, but thinking about your financial resources and cash reserve. So I think Matt said about it earlier, but adequate cash reserves are essential to cover those unexpected costs, such as equipment failure, new hires, or fluctuations in demand, for example. Without sufficient cash, scaling becomes extremely risky or more risky because you might not be able to respond quickly to new challenges that arise. Having sufficient capital shows that your business is prepared for the growth and can survive short-term setbacks. It also allows you to take advantage of new opportunities that require upfront investments, such as entering a new market or scaling operations. And then finally, having redundancy is critical in business areas such as equipment, software, and personnel. For example, owning 2 machines instead of 1 ensures that production doesn't halt if one breaks down. Similarly, cross-training employees so that no one task is dependent on a single person provides flexibility. So here we sometimes see this where tasks sit with one person, and then if they leave or they go on holiday or if they're off sick, this can have a detrimental impact to progress and things could grind to a halt. So that's certainly something to consider. So I want to pass over to Nick. You were talking about to us about the idea of capable governance not having a noise. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, thanks, Alice. And great points. And just as a transitional comment, I think the models Alice has shared with you there are really straightforward, simple, thinking that people have done before, but provide a great framework. And so the simplicity of them, I think, is their beauty. So I really heartily recommend you go back and just rank, where am I now? Where should I be? And see if you can kind of crank out some gaps there to go and investigate change around. But yeah, noise. So what I mean by this is if management teams or leadership teams create confused images like this old TV with white noise static, mixed messages, poor predictions, unexpected surprises, chopping and changing, lack of consistency, all of that detracts from just clarity. And it creates a sense of low confidence. It detracts from confidence. So governance obviously is a huge topic and of vital importance in the context of attracting patient, long-term, available capital. So as you're scaling up, and a lot of businesses do this the wrong way around, right? They say, get some capital in, grow like crazy, don't make any money, and then run up against a wall where they've got no capital, they need to do another fundraise. So this idea of creating patient long-term shareholders who've got ready available cash to invest in your growth as you go, you have to have a confident relationship between the investors and the management team, and between the management team and the rest of the company, right? There's got to be a no noise environment. So let's just kind of reflect on what good looks like without going into too much depth. So from my deep experience, great teamwork. And we talked a bit about flexibility. So one example of great teamwork is you can talk as a leadership team about who is the right person to go and do this. You're not kind of like a one-trick pony where it's always the CEO who leads the charge. You can have a really open, robust discussion, and different people can take the lead when it's appropriate, and the rest of the team completely back that up and support it. So great teamwork. Flexibility. So you've got to do two things here. You've got to be ready to take challenges on and have the space, the mental space, and the work done in the background to be able to react well, to be able to react robustly, and also to be able to be flexible in how you respond to things that are coming down the track. And deep experience of mine is that every year, despite all our efforts to perfectly plan the year ahead in the boards that I've been on, the unexpected has happened and just come in as a sidewinder. And we've needed to kind of drop tools and respond, sometimes for a month or two to something very significant that wasn't predicted. So this ability to have capacity and keep on going with other projects and initiatives while the unexpected is happening is really important. At the same time, one of the most important features of a great leadership team is its ability to predict. All right, and your ability to predict is resting upon your control. And I don't mean control in a hierarchical sense. I just mean having control of things. So knowing what to pull, what to press, what to push, in order to make the business respond capably to differences in the environment. So a bit like flying an aeroplane. A team that can fly the aeroplane well can predict what's going to happen, when they're going to land, how they need to change to things, and give good, calm messaging to their customers and to their investors, right? So this ability to predict well gives you two really important no-noise features. One is consistent, clear communication. Again, building confidence. And two, the ability to respond to the environment really capably, get ahead of things. And again, that just brings confidence. And so a no-noise governance environment is this idea of great teams with flexibility that can predict well, and the consequence of that is that they create a sense of relationship confidence in all directions within the business. And that creates calmness in everyone and an ability to focus on the threats and challenges that are in front of them without too much stress. I'm going to hand over to Matt. He's going to talk to us about readiness.
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, I'm going to circle back round and talk to readiness. You may remember earlier, we looked at the change success model, which I've shown very small in the corner there, just as a reminder for anyone that can see the slides. And we've talked about beliefs briefly. We've looked at capability in a little bit more detail. And the final segment to look at is readiness. So the key point here is that people need to be in a position where they are ready and willing to change, or the plan is not likely to work. It's a key part to the puzzle, and it's sometimes something that people underestimate a little bit. Don't spend quite enough time thinking about that before we get going. The first part to that equation is making sure that people understand why the business needs to grow or change. So it's kind of a principle that's built into human nature. Most people will work more effectively if they understand and buy into the work that they're doing. It's also, in my experience, when times get tough, it's the people that understand the point of the work that they're doing that are a little bit more resilient rather than the teams that are just working and don't really understand the vision behind their work. It makes it really important to have a clearly articulated vision for your growth project, and to make sure that that is well communicated and understood throughout the business. Additionally, something which goes kind of hand in hand with understanding of why is making sure that people have confidence in the business's ability to grow. So is the business capable of growing in the first place? It's great to have people on side with your growth plan, but if they've got no faith in your business's ability to execute that plan, maybe it's due to failed plans in the past, then your new plan is probably not very likely to succeed either. It takes a bit of work to win people over in this regard, particularly where things have failed before. People are not quick to forget those things. So maybe take a bit of time to build them some sessions to, air people's questions and concerns, and open up that discussion early to try and win some people over. Okay, so we've convinced our teams that the business needs to change, and now they are bought into our ability to actually make that change happen. What is next? Well, if you're shouting, build a clear and executable growth plan, then you're right. In my mind, that is the logical next step for people. There needs to be a growth plan that is visible, preferably jointly created by people, and at least fairly well understood by everybody. Ideally, this should be accompanied by things like timelines and task owners, so that everybody's really clear on their role and how that works to drive that growth plan forward. It's also a great stage to encourage people to challenge the specifics of the plan, where they feel like details might not be perfectly correct. It's better to work through that kind of stuff earlier rather than when you're sitting at someone's desk asking them to do it. I feel the best way to get everyone from the leadership team on the same page is to ensure that everyone's had a voice in creating the plan, if at all possible. It's a tried and tested approach to getting buy-in. It can be a bit of a pain, but I think it's the best foundations to build that on. And finally, and perhaps the most important point, is people need to understand what is personally in it for them from your plan. So how are they going to benefit? And Alice talked a little bit before, but like benefiting can come in quite a few shapes and sizes. And depending on your plan, there could be a load of things you could do to help people. Pay is obviously the big one that comes to mind first. Advancement in their role, also really, really great. There can be learning opportunities, or even things like personal meaning or public praise. Everyone is a bit different, so it's good to sound that out. A good tip here, which might sound really obvious, if you don't know what's going to motivate somebody most effectively, then ask them. For example, you could say, we have this amazing growth project underway. Have you thought about what opportunities it might present for you? Highly motivated team is such a solid bedrock to build your project on. It's a really important place to start, and not skip over how your project is going to motivate people. And that's a whole heap of information to cover in one strategy cafe. I hope everyone has followed that okay. And Nick, before we grab some time for questions, perhaps you can just tell us a little bit about maybe one thing that is important, that thing people could get started on right away to make some difference on some of this stuff.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Yeah, we've covered a load. So don't panic. This is all recorded. It's going to be up on the playlist Strategy Cafe. You can play it back and go back through everything that we've said. And also, if you want to share it and use it with your clients, that's what it's there for. This is all free resource for us. So feel free. It's good for us to get the profile out there, and hopefully great and helpful for you to have some nice structures to work with people. You can just kind of chat back and forth as we go through the slides on YouTube. So just put the capable model back up, because everything is founded on this idea of a capable model and a scalable model. And I guess my kind of take-home point is that our clients, and I'm sure the same is true for you and your colleagues, really get things if they're made visual. And this idea of just looking at the 6-point model of what's our go-to-market strategy, are we marketing and communicating that in the right way to the right people? Does operations deliver what marketing promise? Are we innovating to stay ahead of the Joneses? Have we got the people strategy right? Have we got the capital strategy right in order to fundamentally support this platform for growth? And just a quick, intuitive kind of gap analysis done with the team, maybe some discussion about why they're scoring it where it is, will just drive out some points really quickly. And I think this idea of using some of the tools we've shown, this one is a great one. I'll show you some more, so go back if you like those ones. Just do some really quick visual ranking and pull out some gaps and get into discussing it. And that's fabulous for focusing attention on the most important things. So I'm conscious it's 9:25. In a moment, I'm just going to turn off the recording. And if those of you who are around just want to come on for 1 or 2 questions, we'll have a minute or two, I think, just to do that quickly before you have to race off for your important meeting. But just before I do that, what's coming next? So on the 31st of October, I am delighted to have Mary Mickle and Martin Stella, two really wonderful family business advisors. You can see a little bit of the detail of them there. And we're going to be talking about a really common problem, which is this very early engagement with businesses, or if you're a leader within a business, it can be a problem for you too. So when you have strongly different opinions from different shareholders, it can be almost impossible to make a start on driving change. You know, you can't agree on even how you drive change. So we're just going to talk about how you can start to do that right from the very beginning to help the change makers within a business get things moving. So really looking forward to that. It's one of the most important problems to unstick businesses that get stuck like that with different opinions. And then just to note, so our new paid webinar series is up and running, dealing with difficult. Frankly, dealing with difficult anything. So it's really core to what we do. It's on Substack, so you can see there's a link there to dealing with difficult on Substack. We'll send out a link for you to go and have a look. This is for everyone. It's the price of a coffee. You can subscribe if you want to, and there's more tools, you know, engagement, discussions, threads, etc. for subscribers. So subscribing is really valuable. And the next session, we're going to be talking about avoidance, and how to get over avoiding. You can call it 1,000 things, but how to get over avoiding and get on with actioning and getting experience. So that's going to be on the 3rd of October, coming up in just a couple of weeks. So look out for that. This is the Substack site. It's really brilliant. We've got loads of stuff on there already. You'll find details of all the webinars on there. And then you're going to see lots of lovely articles from us that supply, you know, that support and supply all of this, and then recommended sites you can follow that just add to your ability to find the power within and manage your emotional flows. So really important core kind of skills for Alembic people.
So I hope you really enjoyed that session on investment readiness and growth. And next time is a bit of a swerve. So I met Mary Mickle and Martin Stella through Family Business United and really enjoyed chatting to them about our mutual work with families and founders. And we got to talking about how hard it can be for business leaders where the dynamic is a little tricky. Sometimes even to agree how to get started on making changes and finding better ways forwards together. We thought it was such a great topic that we've decided that this would be a great subject for our next Strategy Cafe. So you can see all the details here on the slide. There's an address there where you can go and register, and I look forward to seeing you online with Mary and Martin at the end of October.